Hi, everyone. For the next session, we have Jeremy from Balancer Labs. He is the head of growth at Balancer Labs. He'll be talking about mostly the strategies. What was the topic, Jeremy? I'm sorry, I've completely forgot.
Liquidity bootstrapping
Yes,
tools.
liquidity bootstrap.
Raising money via IDO on balance.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Yeah, Jeremy, over to you. Please take it over. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Anupam, and good to meet you face to face. As Anupam mentioned, I'm head of growth at Balancer Labs. I focus on primarily on partnerships and our grant fund. We currently have a program for launch partners for Balancer V2, which is going to be launched this month. So we're giving select teams early access to the code repository for Balancer V2 to let them get started on development before we actually launch the code. So any crypto teams that are interested in that, you can reach me on Twitter. My handle is at IMMUTBL. But to jump in and get started here, my screen share is disabled. Can you help me with that, Anupam?
Yeah, it should work now.
Okay, yes. Okay. I take it that you are seeing my screen.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. So first thing I'm going to cover is the differences between raising money via IDO or IEO. And overall, this presentation is really meant to give teams in crypto and beyond an overview of what your options are when you're looking to fundraise and release a token and distribute that to your community and the larger global community. So the first question you might ask yourself is whether to do an IDO or an IEO, which means raising money via decentralized exchange or a centralized exchange. And you know, some of the important reasons that might matter to you are that if you went with an IDO, you would be aligning with your core principles as a decentralized project, if that's what you are. You'd be doing this in a way that's you know, fully permissionless for yourself as the team and for your investors and your community members who are buying into the sale. And this would be transparent, whereas on an IEO, you have to actually pay a very hefty listing fee, which is a portion of the tokens that you're going to be distributing. And you know, some exchanges will claim that they don't have a listing fee, but and what I found is that's just because they're playing with wording and calling it something else. So it's expensive to do that. And you know, you have limitations on who can participate because centralized exchanges are usually not available in all geographies. And you know, there are roadblocks that might prevent some of your community members from getting involved. So I'll be looking at 4 popular options for IDOs: Balancer, Uniswap, Mesa, and initial bonding curve offerings, which Hedgic did. So pros and cons to each option. On Uniswap, you're accessing the most liquid DEX market. You're using, you know, an interface that's simple and straightforward, and people are familiar with it. It's a brand that people trust. It's the leader in the DEX space. On the negative side, however, there are quite a few drawbacks. So pools on Uniswap, liquidity pools, are strictly weighted to 50-50 between two tokens. And that has limitations in a lot of different ways, but particularly if you're talking about doing a token sale, it makes the sale prohibitively expensive for most teams because you have to actually provide an equivalent value upfront of the reserve asset, which is the token that you're looking to raise, usually a stable coin or ETH, equivalent to the tokens that you're going to sell. So you have to actually have a lot of capital available upfront just to launch this pool. And basically you would need to do a venture round in order to do your IDO, which is, probably not what a lot of teams want to do. And what's true for Uniswap as well as all bonding curves is that there's a really big problem with front running and this FOMO hype that causes that really interrupts or gets in the way of like a healthier price discovery process. When you're launching a new token to the market, the point of your your offering, of whichever kind of offering it is, serves a few purposes. First of all, it's a way for you to widely distribute tokens to your community. Secondly, it's a way for you to raise money to fund your project. And thirdly, you are bringing an asset that doesn't have a market price yet. You're releasing an asset that doesn't have a market price yet, and you're giving the market an opportunity to decide what it's worth. And like, that's a really important process. So you want to use a mechanism that is well designed to actually facilitate that. Now, what happens on Uniswap is, because these sales happen on a bonding curve, that means every time a purchase is made, the token price will necessarily increase every time. So that means the winners will often be whoever can get their order in first at the starting price, because from there it's usually going to skyrocket. Not only is there an incentive to front run and use bots and pay very high gas fees on Ethereum to get your order in first before everyone else, which creates this whole gas war, which is like not even supposed to be part of the process. And it also creates a very high incentive for pump and dump, because if you do get in first and you do buy up a bunch of tokens and then FOMO hits and everyone's scrambling to buy tokens, you dump at a ridiculously high price. This is what sophisticated players do, and that leads the community to suffer at the end. I have a chart here to just give you like an example of what that could look like, which was Uma's Uniswap offering. You can see like in the very first moments of the sale going live, it goes insanely high, just spikes right up and then crashes down. And anyone who was unfortunate enough to think that like that must be the token and bought it at that point, then basically got screwed afterwards. And whoever was able to get in first using more sophisticated tools and having more capital was able to take advantage of that. So, not an effective way to get your tokens widely distributed, to get your community happy with wins and energized to support your projects for the long run. Just not a good foot to start on. So next option here is Mesa, and Mesa has some very interesting features, such as allowing the buyers to place sealed bids, and that they can place in advance, and then later those orders are matched through these mini auctions, 5-minute mini auctions. So that's kind of a cool thing that they've done. And the idea was to try to limit some of the problems that happen on Uniswap, like the front running and the FOMO, but it's not really, so far it hasn't really solved that issue. Bots still have this major advantage over humans, so it's not an even playing field between your regular retail investor, which I think is probably, you know, the most important person to you, like your genuine community member who wants to own a piece of this, you know, governance token and play an active role for the long term. It's also limited by the amount of liquidity that's on Gnosis protocol, and it's got some complexities on the back end that teams have complained a lot about. Third here is the Ivco initial bonding curve offering. Hedgic sort of built their own open source version of this that other teams also are able to use. And they have definitely done better than the previous two in terms of addressing some of the problems that I've been discussing. So the way they prevent front running and pump and dumps is that every investor in this Hedgic type offering will settle at the same price. Everyone will pay the same price for the sale. However, that means everyone will pay the highest price, basically, because this is still a bonding curve, and the mathematics still dictate that the price will continue to push higher each time there's a bid or a purchase. So, you know, if a whale makes a huge purchase and creates a massive price spike, everyone is held to that. So that is, you know, I would say a big disadvantage. And also, as a buyer, you have to purchase tokens without knowing how much you're actually going to pay per token, or how many tokens you're going to get. So not so ideal for those reasons. This is a good summary by Yenwen from Perpetual Protocol. Price discovery is the main difference between Balancer LBP and an Ivco. Investors who join earlier in an Ivco can't help price discovery. Bonding curve is going up all the way, and investors kind of getting the most expensive price in the end. But this is fair. So it's fair because everyone's getting the price, but it kind of sucks because you can't get a better price by timing the market better. So that brings us to LBPs on Balancer. Which is a new approach, a different approach to this whole problem. So I'm going to cover some of the key features of liquidity bootstrapping tools and how they compare to other options. And I'm also going to use the words of people in the crypto community rather than just my own words to convey these points to you. So first is Luke from PrimeDAO. He said, it's still hard to conduct a permissionless IDO. Projects are forced to use suboptimal and outdated solutions that lead to frustration for both developers and users. Liquidity bootstrapping tools are the most popular initial distribution in that they enable human price discovery, are permissionless, and scalable. Side note, Luke said this after PrimeDAO actually went through the process of doing token sale on Mesa, and you know, felt that it was not what they hoped for, and looked deeper into LBPs and sort of was convinced that this is a more ideal mechanism. And PrimeDAO has now received a grant from Balancer to help us improve LBPs even more. So they're going to be building a really cool interface for it. But they said that before the grant, FYI. So here's Chris Berninski from Placeholder. Token launchers take note. LBPs on Balancer provide for a balanced launch that quells FOMO and better serves your community. And so LBPs were designed to offer fair, balanced, and decentralized token sales. So I'm going to walk through some of its characteristics here. First off, the way an LBP works mechanically is that the weights of the liquidity pool are dynamic. You set start weights and end weights, and those will gradually adjust from the starting weights to the end weights, and that adjustment will create consistent downward pressure on the price of the token. Just to explain that a little more for anyone who's not familiar, a liquidity pool on Balancer consists of tokens that are held according to predefined weights. So, you know, on Uniswap, for example, every pool is 50-50, 50% ETH, 50% DAI, for example. On Balancer, those percentages are customizable. So you could start your token sale weighted, 90% your project token, 10% reserve asset, let's say it's USDC, and you can set your end weights to basically flip so that in the end, for example, you have 70% USDC and 30% project token. This is not like a prescription, these are just random numbers. But the point is that what that does is it mathematically puts price pressure on the project token downward, and it incentivizes buying of that token in exchange for the reserve asset, so that when you get to the end, you have sold most of your tokens and now you're mostly holding the reserve asset. When no one buys, this downward pressure just moves the price straight down. But when there's buying pressure, then those two forces counteract, and the weight adjustments which continue to happen will tamp down price spikes. And this is like the whole point here is to create a downward price discovery process. You set your token price high to begin, like higher than it's worth on purpose, and everyone needs to know that. And as the token sale goes on, the idea is for price to come down until it reaches a point where the market thinks it's a fair value and starts buying. And until that happens, it's just going down. So this is, what Perpetual Protocol did when they did their LBP on Balancer. This is a chart here of what that sale looked like. Very different from what you saw on the UMA chart, where the price had spiked up and crashed. This, kind of comes down, finds some support, and goes through a pretty calm and smooth process of finding what the market believes this token is worth. So you want to give the supporters of your project the opportunity to participate at a fair price, and you want to give that to everyone. So you can, one of the advantages of this customizable weight structure and these adjustable weights is that you can seed your token sale with a much smaller amount of upfront capital than you would need on Uniswap, for example. Because if, let's say, for example, your sale is starting with a 95% and 5% weight distribution, that means you only need 5% of the value of the pool in the reserve asset, and 95% is just your tokens. So the amount of capital that's required up front is like way, way less. And this becomes way more accessible to startup teams. Yeah, so taking a look at this graphic here, the distribution of tokens from the perpetual protocol per token sale was pretty impressive, and this is what we've continued to see in general through all the other LBPs that have happened ever since. So because of this downward price discovery process, it is not a good idea to front run. You will get wrecked if you do that. And so that's how we basically, cut that whole thing out. And therefore, we create an environment where like bots and humans have the same even playing field. You're not going to have an advantage if you're, running sophisticated software as opposed to a regular person that's just logging on and doing this. Furu Combo is another team that did an LBP just a couple months ago. So let's take a look at how LBPs actually work. So for anyone who's not really familiar with balancer liquidity pools, there are two primary structures. One is called private pools and one is called shared pools. Shared pools are the majority of the big liquidity pools on Balancer, where they're open and permissionless and anyone can add or remove liquidity to those pools. Private pools are different, where they actually have a controller, and that controller is authorized to be the sole liquidity provider or to be the gatekeeper for any liquidity that comes in and out of the pool. And now then there's a smart pool, which is a private pool that is owned or governed or controlled by a smart contract. And that smart contract is what controls the changing parameters of the pool and facilitates the whole process of an LBP. An LBP is one of many implementations of smart pool. Now, one thing that's cool about smart pools is that since they are controlled by a smart contract, that smart contract can reach out and receive information from anywhere on the Ethereum network and act based on that information. So, these types of pools can be used in so many different types of ways. We're seeing more and more use cases all the time, which is pretty exciting stuff. So these are the parameters that can be changed in a smart pool. You can change which tokens are held in the pool, the weights of those tokens, the swap fee of the pool, who can provide liquidity, the max deposited value, and you can halt and resume trading in the pool. The ones that are relevant to an LBP, you would use the change weights function to create that incremental downward price pressure. And as those weights change, basically what happens is that the pool redefines the percentage of its value that's held in each token, and this therefore adjusts the exchange rate of the assets in the pool. And then you'll also be using the whitelist function so that only the pool controller is providing liquidity for this token sale. And you'll use the start stop trading function to make this a finite time period, so that your token sale might last a day or 2 or 3 days. Those are some common configurations. So these are some past results. They're a little outdated. We have had a lot of new stuff happening with LBPs, but Perpetual Protocol, they did a 3-day sale. They sold over 9 million tokens to over 1,300 investors. The total volume was 21.8 million, and they raised over $15 million. The volume, the discrepancy between volume and funds raised is just a product of the fact that that in an LBP, traders can buy or sell into that pool. It's not a one-way street, and that also helps price not skyrocket. Another example, Crew Combo 24-hour sale, almost 1.5 million tokens sold to over 1,000 buyers, and they raised over 7 million USD in value. I think it was USDC. This is an example of a smaller scale sale by Cresco Fin. They went for 7 days, and they raised $2.5 million with 690 investors. So yeah, I'll end here. We've had some really explosive, actually like much bigger than any of those that I just listed, LBP sales over the last couple of months. For example, Hydra DX, Mask Network, Radical, Hopper. We've had like some really big token sales on Bouncer, but I'll stop there. And you guys can let me know if we want to do Q&A or anything like that.
Thanks, Jeremy. So someone's asking, are ICOs, IDOs, and IEOs are pretty much dead now?
ICOs, IEOs, and what else?
IDOs.
Well, IDOs are the opposite of dead. They're booming. They're exploding. And we're seeing that on Balancer firsthand. We've had teams, we've seen LBPs with over $40 million in volume just over the last month. So I think IEOs, in my opinion, if you're a decentralized project, they don't really make sense. They take a huge cut of what you're trying to raise, and they don't let you reach all the people that you want to reach. ICOs, yeah, those are pretty much dead. They've been dead for a while.
Can we use LBP in NFT sale? Someone's asking.
Well, selling NFT tokens, which means that they're one-of-a-kind tokens. An LBP is for a sale of like a large quantity of fungible tokens. So I think if you were selling an NFT, or if you're selling like a bunch of NFTs, each of those will have its own price and will probably have its own separate value. And you would want to sell those a different way as opposed to this mechanism. This mechanism is, for example, great for like governance tokens. Let's say you had an NFT project, somehow involved NFTs, and that project was governed by a token, by the holders of this governance token. You might, release that token to the market through an LBP.
Right. Great. So Jeremy, what can we expect from Balancer Labs in the coming months, coming year or something? Do you have any announcements that we should know?
Yeah, we've been working really hard on Balancer V2, which brings some really exciting new features and improvements that I think will be really impactful in DeFi and in finance in general. That is planned for the end of this month that we'll be launching that approximately. And we put out some posts on our Medium blog starting to detail some of these specific improvements and features, like really exciting stuff. I highly recommend reading about it, especially about asset managers and our new vault architecture and gas optimizations that we're making, and some of the new partnerships that are coming on board to get involved with Balancer V2.
Perfect. Duncan is saying NFTs can be quote unquote hatched, and the token that gives you the right to hatch them could be sold this way.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a fungible, like generally, I would like to make a general statement, like you should use LBPs to launch a fungible token to the market that is not yet being traded, that you want to do an initial distribution for, and that you want to have a price discovery process for. So it's the token that doesn't yet have a price, is not trading in other places, and there's a significant quantity, and they're fungible.
Got it. Makes sense. Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you for taking out the time and coming and speaking with us. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, Anupam. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.